Today, how many of you know this one? Some funny events in our histories, some very deep events in our history that are not very popular, very highlighted. How many of you know the Kroles, the Igbos, and the Kroles, the events that happened in time? The Igbo was not just an ordinary slave. He had entertainment too. He was valued. He was just valued. God knows why. But let's check this out immediately. Is there on your screen? Amazing, I think. I don't know how you see it. He says in the Negro Festival in this life, the chief point lies in making as much noise as possible. These guys were in everlasting competition. What was going on? And today the Igbos won. Some days the Crawlers win. Very amusing indeed. That I myself will not even bother firstly introducing who these Crawlers are without starting up by reading this first part of the slippers on your screen to say what makes this topic even interesting. So this part says, and that these good niggers were the almost civilized inhabitants of Yoruba, Nupe, Hausa, and other countries in Sudan, and the very people to whom I had gone forth as a missionary. They, at least, according to the inflexible laws of nature, deserve a better fate than slavery. For if rights and relations are the just results of properties or character which they undoubtedly are, these people had the right to remain unmolested in the native land. Every planter who is 40 years old knows the great difference in the character of now niggers. The short, stubby, silly fellow often brought into the slave market were chiefly from Congo, south of the line, where all the people imported to America have an affinity to the Hottentots. The Gola niggers were from Gola country on the St. Paul's River where they still vegetate, about the meanest of the human race and amply worthy of the cotton field. The Igbo nigger was from a fine open country above the delta of the Niger and not from the delta itself, as we have commonly supposed. At home, he was a noble, high-minded and half-civilized man who beautified his fine country with well-civilized farm and shady villages. In America, he was trusted, intelligent, and industrious, but remarkable for an absolutely indomitable spirit, to which even the master must yield when the Igbo was aroused, unless he should choose to shoot down the best slave on his plantation. To make an excuse, on the line below he says, well, after all, we all say there was this migration from Sudan down here. He said, no wonder, for the Igbos, in common with the Sudanese, have undergone a strong Caucasian innovation, which is evidenced by the fact that some of them are nearly white. Now you read this other part and see where it says this was encounter between Igbos. They spell it Igbos, which you say Hebrew or you say Igbo. So it says, immediately after the christening, the Igbo drums were produced, and in defiance of Sunday, the Negroes had the irrelevance to be gay and happy, while the presents were getting in order for distribution. All the men got jackets, the women 7 yards of stuff each for petticoats, and co. And the children as much printed cotton as would make a couple of frocks. The Crowleys were delighted beyond measure when some of the African male Negroes exclaimed, "Thank Massa, thank Massa," and made a low courtesy in the confession of their gratitude as they were all called to receive their presents alphabetically in pairs. Some of the combinations were very amusing. Wow, Crowleys. Who are these Crowleys? Thank Massa. Who are these Crowleys? Why are they excited, amused with the Africans, particularly their Igbo rival? Because the point of this, or should I say, the sub point of this is that there was a two people that were always in rival, and anti-Semitism or out of jealousy or this other guy was always above the Crowleys, always were in competition with the Igbos to be more respected. Imagine something that goes so much as shooting down your best slave. The slave master himself had to come short rather than shoot down his own slave. He had to choose to shoot down the best slave on his plantation, or he yielded to the anger of the Igbo. So this kind of respect, I think they needed it. So who are these Crowleys? On your screen it says the evolution of the word Crowley, individuals of African descent born into slavery in the colonies. I think most probably people of mysteries, the first of them. So why the sympathy for the other race, then even that brutality. But why is this Igbo valued? Why is the joy? What is the joy of an Igbo saying thank Massa? An Igbo saying thank Massa. Let's discuss now the joy before we go to the fun of the time slavery. As such, okay, as such as this. Was it this joy on the screen? The mother in this case was a slave woman, an Igbo woman, the most expensive and valuable of slaves. The Igbo was the most expensive and still the most valuable of slave. This slave was different. Most expensive and you still got for them. Or is it this? They are still always rebellious when even in the buying they write it here, of the same tribe and speaking the same language as the breeches. So called from the word breecher, signifying gentleman or like hidalgo in Spanish, some of the gentlemen, as these had seen better days and were more liable than their countrymen, who were inclined to despond when sent on board ship, to take some desperate means of relevance of relieving themselves and encouraging others to shake off their bondage. The masters of the slave ships were generally averse to purchasing them. Breaches were people like Olado Ekwano. Was it that? Or was he the runaway slave? Where he says, this Igbo, they are always rebellious. They're always rebellious, always costing you money. The Igbo captain has effected his escape by burning down the prison door. It is supposed that he had fled towards the fastness in the interior of the mountains, where I am assured that many settlements of runaway slaves have been formed, and with which the inhabited part of the island has no communication. However, the chief of the accompanies Macron's Captain Rowe is gone in pursuit of him and has promised to bring him in alive or dead. The latter is the only reasonable expectation as a fugitive is represented as a complete desperado. Or have you ever forgotten the other one where a Crowley or some other person, Anakin from Ghana, volunteered that he will find the Igbo slave? So what is the joy in the Igbo saying Massa? The joy, I think, is because they were too rebellious. This slave was different. This slave, yeah, it's true. The boy was buried that night according to African customs. They left the father to have his burial of his child in African custom. Now, what is fun? The competition, the competition with the Crowleys. The competition so bad. uh, you see it on your screen. It says that the magistrate bade the driver take them all back again. They all went to complain um, to the slave master there, the slave officer. Back again. Upon which they slunk away to their houses, while the Crowleys cried out, "Shame, shame," as they passed along. Maybe today the Crowleys won. I've forgotten this chapter. So it says, indeed, the Crowleys could not have received a greater pleasure than the mortification of the Igbos, for the two bodies hate each other as cordially as the Giobs and Gibellians. And after their departure for the bay, I heard the head cook haranguing a large audience and declaring it to be her fixed opinion that Massa ought to sell all the Igbos and buy Crowleys instead. Probably Miss Cook was not the less loud